Hey there, welcome to 5 Myths That Mainstream Parenting Has Tried to Feed You. My name is Christina Trujillo Sieren, and I'm the owner and lead coach at Unapparent Parenting, a coaching program for parents of teens. I'm so excited that you're here and I can't wait to get started. But first, let's review a few things before we jump in. First, myths can be tricky. Myths are widely held beliefs, and yes, by definition, a myth is false. Yet I want to caution how we view these parenting myths. I'm not suggesting that these parenting myths are 100% wrong, and therefore we should scratch them all together. My goal here is to encourage you to step into a place of curiosity and bring awareness to how some of these parenting myths may have been misleading, unquestioned, or misaligned with your own personal values and highest priorities as a parent. My hope is that you will take on the role of a curious observer and pay attention to the following 3 things. 1, the energy and intention behind the myths and how these myths carry some subtle under-the-surface messaging. 2, your physical sensations and reactions as you move through each myth. And 3, how do each of these myths either align or misalign with your personal values, which also includes your parenting values and parenting priorities. Essentially, you can ask yourself, how does this myth support or disconnect me from the parent I want to be? Each of these myths follow a format to keep things as simple and straightforward as possible. Each myth will cover 1, what the myth is, 2, what the myth is rooted in, 3, how the myth can show up in our words, statements, and actions, etc., 4, what to focus on instead, and 5, a helpful tip to support you to challenge and quiet the myth. On a final note, the myth as they're covered here simply scratch the surface of questioning and understanding their subtleties. Therefore, this series is intended to give you a glimpse into each myth, so if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to reach out. You can email me at christina@unapparentparenting.com. Myth 1, parents need to be the ones in control. This first myth is rooted in power and control. Take a moment to self-reflect. Have you ever heard yourself saying, I'm the parent and you're the child? Because I said so? What I say goes? Because I can? Or find yourself engaging in a command statement that starts with, you need to. I know I have. Developmentally, adolescence is a time for teens to identify who they are and create their own independence. And yes, from the perspective of your teen, they want to do this on their own terms. Yet, as parents, we can embark in behaviors that align from an energy of power and control. So what does this look like? One action is pushing or placing expectations on our teens on how to behave or what to say. And more often than not, these actions coexist with statements that start with, if I were you, I would. Quite simply, this myth grounds in an energy of, I know what is best for you, and when we push our own ideas of what is best, we are disempowering our teens when it comes to making independent decisions. So why do we do this? Because in these moments, we feel out of control or powerless ourselves, and we get stuck in a thinking pattern that gives the illusion, if I assert more power, I will have more control. That sounds completely backwards though, doesn't it? What if we simply acknowledge that there's times when we have no idea what we're doing and we're doing the best we can? Let that be a mantra of sorts. I acknowledge that there are times when I have no idea what I'm doing as a parent and I'm doing the best I can. This isn't giving up your power. This is giving yourself an opportunity to pause, listen, and trust that your teen knows what is best for them. From this perspective, you and your teen become collaborative partners, which allows for more respectful interactions and creates reciprocity along the way. So here's the helpful parenting tip which moves away from power and control and aligns with opportunity and collaboration. More often than not, you and your teen want the same outcome. Take an inventory of what you desire most the next time you find yourself in the energy of power and control. Then write it down. When we write things down, we're more likely to take purposeful action. Here are a few examples. I'm in an energy of power and control right now, and what I desire most is for my teen to understand that I'm worried about their abrupt decision to stop playing soccer. Or, I'm in an energy of power and control right now, and what I desire most is for my teen and I to discuss this challenging topic with patience and calm voices. Myth 2, parenting wouldn't be so hard if. This is a fill-in-the-blank type of statement, and this myth is rooted in shame and guilt. Here are a few examples. Parenting wouldn't be so hard if my teen would follow through with their chores the first or second time I asked. Parenting wouldn't be so hard if my teen acted more appropriately in public settings. Parenting wouldn't be so hard if my teen was more like Johnny and got good grades. Parenting wouldn't be so hard if I was more patient like Susie. She seems to be calm and collected all the time. This myth has many layers, so let's uncover just a few. First, this myth has the ability to carry an energy of comparison. Comparison can be your teen versus another teen, or your parenting compared to the parenting of another caregiver. While comparison can be good when it comes to providing a self-assessment for where you are versus where you want to be, which means that you're in a self-reflective state observing you and you only, in this myth's case, comparison is not brewing positive feelings. What's tricky is that the myth's underlying message is hiding underneath the surface of our awareness, which means that this myth can be very subtle in how it shows up. There's an underlying theme connected to this myth that sits in the background whispering, parenting wouldn't be so hard if only I were a better parent. If I were a better parent, my teen would act more appropriately in public settings. If I were a better parent, I would be calm and collected like Susie. Here's the other piece. Parenting has become an arena for shaming, guilting, and a scrutiny of judgments, and this has to stop. But how? It starts with you. Shame and guilt will shape the way you think and make decisions as a parent, and will paralyze your ability to trust that you know what you're doing. When you don't trust your own abilities, it's easy to seek validation from others to tell you that you're parenting the right way, which also invites potential judgments from others that you're doing something wrong. I see this validation-seeking behavior often with the parents I work with, and this myth is just one myth among many that leads parents to comparison thoughts and behaviors and unhelpful beliefs that their parenting isn't good enough. When you parent with confidence, you don't care as much about what others think about your parenting, and you know that your teen's behavior is not a direct reflection on you. And you're less likely to allow other people's judgments to break you down, and you can start to quiet those nagging thoughts including, what will people think of me? Or what will people say? Here's a helpful parenting tip which moves away from shame and guilt and aligns with confidence and self-trust. There's two pieces to this one. First, make a list of your parenting wins and keep adding to it. Include times that made you feel confident with your parenting choices. Maybe it was a compliment or a simple thank you from your teen. And think about those times when you felt a sense of, I did good, or trusted judgment above outside approval. And second, parenting your teen is unique to you and you only, so create boundaries around who you share with. Choose people who will cultivate a supportive environment and leave you in a state of confidence. I want to be really clear on this last one. Sharing in this sense is not to seek approval, but to connect with other supportive persons who can sit in a state of, I hear you, and I can see that you're doing your very best as a parent. Myth 3, you should have this figured out. This myth is rooted in perfection. Should is the key word here, which can lead to should statements, such as the ever popular I should have known or I should know. The reality is, as parents, we are constantly learning and growing, and this myth has parents striving for perfection, spinning their wheels trying to hyper-manage this notion that parents have to know or should have known, both of which aren't rooted in the here and now. The statement, I should have known, is rooted in the past and has you engaging in trying to fix situations that have already happened. We can't change our past parenting choices, although we can learn from them, letting our past inform our experiences in the here and now. The statement, I should know, leads to a rabbit hole of negative thoughts because should is flowing from a place of control, and before we know it, we're creating scenarios in our head that haven't even happened, and now we're even more worried. We're now in a frame of mind that is future-oriented. Let's get back to the here and now through mindfully engaging in experiences we have the power to curiously observe, which allows for intentional action and responsiveness. What do I mean by curious observation? Curious observation is about letting go and reflecting on your internal process, asking yourself, what is this experience in the here and now bringing up for me? Or what are the physical sensations that are arising in my body as I approach this circumstance? Is there additional information I can gather or questions I can ask to make a more informed decision? Parenting is about trial and error, and sometimes it's a learn as you go. And realistically, sometimes you won't get it right the first time, and that's okay. But be sure to cut yourself some parenting slack. There's always room for you to take a different course of action the next time around. Parenting is also about mindfully taking into consideration the personality of your teen and your personality as a parent, among many other factors, while also identifying for yourself how you want to show up for your teen as their parent. Here's a helpful parenting tip which moves away from perfection and aligns with mindfulness. No more should statements. Replace should with could. Why? Could allows for more control over your parenting choices and doesn't lock you into the past or the future, or lock you into a one-size-fits-all parenting option. Here is an example using the statement, I should know more about social media so I can keep a closer eye on what my teen is doing. We change should to could, which changes our statement to, I could know more about social media so I can keep a closer eye on what my teen is doing. Next, think about things you can control and can do to learn more about social media. For example, you can visit parenting websites that talk more about the do's and don'ts of social media. Or you could ask your teen questions about the social media platforms they use and why they like them. Now, what about those statements that are rooted in the past? Let's look at, I should have known that my teen was unhappy playing soccer. We change should to could, which changes our statement to, I could have known that my teen was unhappy playing soccer. Let your past inform your here and now. Ask yourself, what information do I now have that I didn't know back then? Or is there anything from back then that I ignored or overlooked that I now know to pay attention to? This isn't about shaming one's choices. This is about using a past experience as an opportunity for growth and learning. And similar to our previous example, you can ask yourself, what could I do if I see that my teen is unhappy playing a sport? Then list a few actions you can take that you have the power to control. Myth 4, parenting a teen is hard. This myth is rooted in fear. This is one of my favorites because it's so inherent in our society. It has become so natural for people to equate raising a teen with hardship and difficulty. Think about it. How many times have you been out and about and someone shares that they have a teen? Cue the responses. Oh my gosh, how is that? I'm sorry. I remember that age and it was horrible. Good luck. Take a moment to push pause and think about what you've heard or even some of the statements you tell yourself about raising your own teen. My children are 9 and 6, and people tell me all the time to enjoy these years because once my kids are teens, my life is going to somehow change for the worse. Crazy, right? We are setting parents up for failure merely by planting a mindset seed that is rooted in fear. And we freely perpetuate this fear when we tell parents that parenting a teen is difficult. Yes, raising a teen has challenges, but so does every other age. Let's focus on the good by shifting our mindset. Adolescence is an opportunity for us to see our teens take on different roles, pursue different interests, change their clothing and their hairstyle, and experiment with who they are and how they interact. You won't always agree with their choices or their style, and sometimes it will feel completely messy, yet this is a part of your teen's process to create a strong and confident sense of who they are in this world. Here's the helpful parenting tip which moves away from fear and aligns with shifting our mindset. This tip is about taking notice, and it's pretty simple. The next time you share that your child is a teen, or you overhear someone share that they have a teen, see how people respond. Are the responses favorable or unfavorable? And what's your response to the reactions of others? Myth 5, you should put your child first. This myth is rooted in expectation. There are so many concepts that can tie into this myth. One big one is that our teen needs to be a certain way in order to fit into society's standards of what it means to be productive and successful. These standards value competition and comparison and have sustained this notion that it is our role as parents to ensure that they meet these standards, and if they don't, somehow we've done a bad job. How many parents do you know that are stressed out, running from activity to activity, and share how exhausted they are? Or the parents that have a standard for their teen to excel academically to get into college, yet these parents are stressed throughout the entirety of their teen's high school experience. When we over-focus on our teen and prioritize for them what they need to do, not only do we start to pave the path for resentment, we set the expectation that our teen is not good enough if they don't meet these standards. Resentment gets fueled by the lack of appreciation we feel from our teen, especially after we've been doing everything in our power to support their short-term and long-term successes, and it breeds disconnect because we're pushing standards on our teens. All the while, as parents, we are overwhelmed and we're exhausted. But what if we allowed our teens to spontaneously choose their own path? For starters, we wouldn't have to carry this false sense of selflessness around, signaling to others that we're good parents. And second, we would draw honest and healthy boundaries around what we want for our children, while also differentiating where we end as parents and where our teen begins. Here's a helpful parenting tip which moves away from expectation and aligns with spontaneity. I want you to take inventory. Think about all the different ways you have sacrificed or maybe even neglected your own needs, wants, or desires, and instead focus your attention and energy on your teen by putting them first. Here's a list of questions you can answer yes or no to. These questions are not meant to be exhaustive, so be sure to add additional sacrifices you may have made. I've put the questions into different categories with 4 questions under each one. Let's start with work and career. Have you ever said no to a promotion or put a work project on hold? Stayed home to be a full-time parent instead of entering or returning to the workforce? Put off going to school or other training that could or would support a career goal? Worked after hours or late into the night once your teen is sleeping so you can be hands-on during the day? Health and fitness is our next category. Have you found yourself skipping the gym or other workouts? Find yourself standing and eating meals, forgetting to eat, or scarfing food down? Saying I don't have time to anything that would support your health, such as scheduling doctor's appointments? Said no to nap even though you've been beyond exhausted and overly fatigued? Next, relationships and friendships. Has your romantic or significant other relationship or partnership taken a back seat? Find yourself saying no to hanging out or going out with your friends? Feeling selfish and/or guilty if you take time to meet friends or enjoy time outside the home? Ignoring phone calls because you're too busy to answer the phone, yet you so badly want to catch up? Now for financial. Put financial resources toward your teen that had been originally saved for you. Said yes to buying something for your teen, yet feeling a sense of resentment tied to the purchase, either in the moment of buying or after the purchase. Finding yourself not investing in yourself in whatever way that looks like. Maybe it's a new pair of shoes or concert tickets. Worked overtime even though you're burned out and didn't necessarily need to put in the extra hours. Hobbies and adventure is the next category. Is there something new you want to learn yet haven't made time for? Said I can't to travel because it would pull you away from your kids or because there's too much to do or maybe too many responsibilities that would then create more stress when you arrived back home. Completely stop doing a hobby or activity that you used to enjoy. Find yourself saying, where would I find time for that? Or stressing about all the things you would have to do to set up and coordinate if you did invest in yourself. Here are some additional questions to consider. Do you do things for your teen that they can do for themselves? Or have you ever dropped a commitment to do something for your teen? Do you carve out time to engage in practices that keep you grounded and balanced? Do you find time for a spiritual practice that has been a source of support or empowerment? Do you refuse to ask for help because you believe that you need to do it all yourself? We did it! This brings us to the end of our journey with 5 myths that mainstream parenting has tried to feed you. But before we end, let's quickly recap the 5 myths and then we can address a few additional options. Myth 1, parents need to be the ones in control. Myth 2, parenting wouldn't be so hard if. Myth 3, you should have this figured out. Myth 4, parenting a teen is hard. And myth 5, you should put your child first. Now for next steps. The initial email I sent you has 2 supplemental resources, including the 5 Myths Journal Prompts Worksheet and the 5 Myths Chart Reference. These are merely additional resources, so if you choose to only listen to this video or audio, that's completely okay. You will still receive all of the information on these 5 myths. The 2 worksheets are simply extra tools to assist you, the parent, to dive deeper into how each myth may be showing up for you personally, and to also provide a quick reference point on each myth. And they will summarize the following. 1, what each myth is. 2, what each myth is rooted in. 3, how the myth can show up in your words, statements, and actions. 4, what to focus on instead. And 5, the helpful parenting tip to support you to challenge, observe, or quiet the myth. Regardless of what you decide to do, I do encourage you to take a look at the 2 supplemental resources, engage if the 5 Myths Journal prompt and/or the chart reference will be helpful to you in any way. I want to thank you again for joining me to uncover 5 myths that mainstream parenting has tried to feed you. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to connect. You can email me at Christina@unapparentparenting.com. And to learn more about unapparent parenting, please visit my website at unapparentparenting.com, or you can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram. I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.